stars like Osaka, and she said she needed a rest and off from the game. And there are many examples of going into depression at the highest level. Do you think there's much more to it, or you players need to come back after a rest and perform?
So it has always been the case. This is not nothing new. Like I've told you earlier, I've been doing this for 20 years, elite sport, about 5 Olympics and how many World Championships and World Cups, and I've done a bit of football, a bit of F1. What I've seen is this has always been there, but just that younger generations today are okay to talk about it, especially since 2015, 2016. If you look at interviews and stuff, athletes have started opening up a little more. Another thing that's happening is the biological age. These young people, they don't have the benefit of experience of life, maturity. They've been stars mostly. They don't know how to manage failure, because they've not experienced failure much, and they also don't know how to handle success. You see, that's one thing. And another, for these athletes, they're more aware thanks to the internet and all of that. They're very aware of what's happening around the world. They're out there on the social media. Again, their intention is not to misuse it or get distracted, but it is distracting. Even for me, if I mind, even if I spend like 2 minutes on or 5 minutes on a Facebook or an Insta or whatever it is very attractive, because there's such interesting stuff there, correct? And after all, they are humans too. They are young children too, right? So that's one. So their experiences, the more passionate they are, their training and competitions become traumatic. And then, like I was also mentioning earlier, the sports ecosystem, we are very greedy. We don't settle for less.
Yes.
Because these young children give so much so early. We want more and more and more, and they now have to work to satiate us as well. So when one of these young, young soldiers fall, I mean, perhaps soldier is the wrong word to use, because defense is a different ball game altogether. But when one of these young guns, these young athletes not perform, then we kind of write them off. So we put them on the pedestal with their successes, and we dump them on the floor when things go wrong. So empathy in us is lacking. And self-compassion in the athlete for themselves, towards themselves, is also lacking, because they don't know. Self-compassion is seen as weakness. Self-compassion is seen as, taking pity on oneself. But actually, self-compassion is self-care, right? So somewhere all of this is kind of leading to more number of, or rather an enhanced number of mental ill health.
Do you think there are many dropouts because of these type of issues?
Plenty, because if I were to talk about India, what I've understood a little about India in the last, say, 2.5 years. What I'm seeing is dropout, not so much of mental ill health, but dropout because they give up on themselves, or the sports ecosystem gives up on themselves. This
self-belief is...
this word weed out is taken so lightly in India, unfortunately. And for a young person who has a very impressionable mind, who has a very fragile ego owing to their puberty and adolescence, this is like, rejection for them, you see. And they feel very less supported, they feel judged. And again, they also have to carve out a future for themselves.
True.
Right? Because sports does not give much future. I mean, we need to accept that. Like you were telling earlier, less than 1% make it to the top. But sport can build a huge character in an individual, but seldom is that focused on. So the focus is mostly, outcomes and endeavors, and that is what these young people focus to as well. So that could be another reason for dropout. Sports ecosystems are not psychologically safe. Emotional abuse is very common, right? When we were growing up, what is known as emotional abuse or physical abuse in today's term didn't feel like abuse, because we knew the honesty in our ecosystem.
True.
The little ecosystem had. Even when they scolded and shouted at us, we knew that it was for our benefit. It was their method of putting it across.
True.
Because they equally showed us love, they gave us that protection.
Correct.
But now it's a lot of mismatch. I'm trying to wrap my head around to pinpoint what exactly is going wrong.
Do you think there is more involved? There should be more empathy with the team owners, or a professional team, or a national coach who is involved with training with the athletes?
I think empathy must start at home. You see, that is where it should start. The parents, the siblings, the husbands, the boyfriends, the partners, or the girlfriends, that immediate, circle.
Correct.
It must start from there. Because when empathy starts there, then self-compassion will also begin. And then the individual will start loving and respecting themselves for who they are rather than the outcomes of their endeavors.
Yeah.
And when you come with that kind of perspective and that kind of outlook, then the people you are interacting will also give you that. Because you are now less vulnerable, you will stand up for yourself, you see. So I wouldn't go even to talk about the management or sports governance or sponsors. It must start here. When it's lacking here, then there's no point blaming external factors. Because to me, all of these are external factors. When
it's a combination of...
Yeah, when someone gives you support, they will ask something out of you because it is a transactional relationship.
Correct.
You are a commodity to them. Because they are looking to kind of use your name as a brand or to further their brands with your name. And let's not forget, you need money for the technology, for the training, for the travel, for the exposure, right? So to hold these entities responsible solely for mental ill health is not right, correct? It's also about the immediate ecosystem you have. It's also about your own perspective of yourself, right? But then it'll be good if there can be a lot more understanding, the external entities. But I really think it starts from home.
Coming back to the general scene in the present day world, there's a lot of competitiveness, there's a lot of pressure put on the children, a lot of pressure at home to perform in education and different parts of life. Do you think this plays a bigger role in shaping the mental health of the children?
What's happened is there's a confusion. What parents are thinking as support and encouragement, what these ecosystems are seeing as support and encouragement actually is pressure and pushing. So I want to believe that it's not been done intentionally largely, unintentionally it is happening. And the way these parents or the ecosystem who are say in their middle age or around my age group, what they're doing to these young people is what was done to them. So during that time this worked, but now it doesn't work. Yeah. It's not working.
It's not working.
So we need to change the approach. We can't be doing the same approach. Again, respecting an individual is very important.
Correct.
Respecting is very important. As an ecosystem, you can't be doing wrong things which are very obvious to the athletes and expect the athletes to respect you.
Not even athlete, a common man, a common person.
Yeah, and accepting them, accepting them the way they are with their flaws. And also to tell you that, if you look at, if you take the history, right, all of these greats, greatest of all times, they've had a very tough adolescent period. They've been risk takers. They didn't behave in their best way. So you can't expect someone who's very not discipline and not commitment is not what I'm saying, but someone who's going to be very proper and well behaved and listen to you and be under your control to go out there and fight. So it creates a confusion. Of course, values are important. It's our responsibility as parents, as the ecosystem to, first live by right values, be an example ourselves, and also kind of teach younger generations those values, correct? That's important. But then if you're talking about fighting spirit, if you're talking about positive aggression, then you need to trust these athletes. So for younger athletes, when you're overprotective, indirectly you're telling them that you're not confident that they can take care of themselves. You see? And then how do you expect them to have that self-belief to go out and fight.
Do you think our education system needs something of these types to be introduced in our curriculum so that the younger kids know something about their mind and how to go around when they are in the adolescent age, and how the parents also syncing along with the teachers to bring in a general good health and mental program to the children?
I think it's super important. During our times, we didn't need it because we had a lot of time to think and reflect. Now the world is so busy, the lives are so busy. You don't have time to become quiet and think for yourself. For example, when COVID happened, when lockdown happened, that is when people realized that they're unhappy, that they actually need help, or it's okay to talk to someone. So the world had to stop to give them the time to think for themselves. That is the truth of today. And because that's the situation, education needs, some external agency needs to impart that. When there's a program or a course, then people are forced to make that time, and that could be their thinking time. Actually, each of us have the capability to do it. That's why during our time we were able to do it. Each of us have that capability.
Correct.
But perhaps we are not quietening ourselves and reflecting. Perhaps we don't have the time. It's wrong to judge anyone, right? So it is greatly needed. First, we need it for the teachers and the ecosystem.
Correct.
Because they need to walk the talk. Then perhaps the parents and the family, and then I think last would be the students, because somehow I think generations today are misunderstood. I'm not saying everything about them is amazing. No, of course, we weren't amazing completely either. But then we had the gift of time. We had a lot of time at the outset.
No, demands were less.
Demands were less. Stress was less. The competitive level was far less.
Better.
Yeah. So our times were very different, and that worked for us then. Now we have to change the game for these young people. We can't expect them to now we are also used to click a button, things happen. So that's what we are expecting from the younger generation too. So
how do you think is the present elite level sports persons in the country? What do you expect is the future of Indian sport, having seen sport in the country now?
I can base it on my very little 2.5 years of experience in India, and if I were to compare to perhaps 17 years, 18 years of exposure I have with, because I've largely worked with top 10 countries in the world in terms of Olympics. Not that I chose to, but somehow this is how things happened. Certainly there's a lot of promise. There's no dearth of talent in India. Our athletes are super motivated, very passionate. They're willing to work hard, contrary to what's believed. But what's happening is they don't have a life, most of them. The assumption that you drop everything and chase sport is very wrong. If I were to look at the Olympic podium finishers I've worked with, there have been plenty of them. Most of them have had at least either jobs or have been students themselves. You see? So it's not the number of hours of training. Of course, some sports need more hours than other sports. It's, I think, how much they're making use of every minute they are. And only happy people do that. If you're enjoying something, you give it your all, right? And the assumption of the sports ecosystem and the families these days that if you chase education or if you chase a job, you could be distracted and you won't give your 100% here because you have a plan B. I think that's also wrong, greatly. Perhaps some kids will do it, but because there's a plan B, you now can peacefully and without worry get into this endeavor 100%. So if those changes can be made for India, then oh my God.
Thanks, Sanjana, for having a
Thank you.
very deep thought on what you think on sports performance, and you've given the listeners a great feedback on what to do. And
I hope so.
thanks having you on our chat show for Mysore Sport, and thank you.
Thank you.